Of Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I, Priya Singh, would like to extend a warm welcome to one and all on today's Banking Conclave 3.0 Future of Banking. India's banking sector is entering a defining phase driven by digitization, regulatory evolution, fintech collaboration, consolidation trends, and rapidly shifting customer expectations. As banks adopt AI-based services, strengthen cybersecurity, and embrace open banking frameworks, the industry is preparing for a future marked by agility, resilience, and deeper financial inclusion. With this background, the Bombay Chamber of Commerce is hosting this conclave to explore the force reshaping the sector. I would like to invite on the dais Mr. Khosla, Director General Bombay Chamber, to please deliver the welcome address.
And are now excited to listen to our panelists, expert views on what's the future of the banking industry. Meanwhile, a lot, as we all know, is happening at Davos. Clash of the titans. President Trump is now entering that arena with already Macron and Carney have laid the foundations to what happens to be one of the most exciting Davos ever. At the same time, I think as the European Committee head Ursula has said, that there are exciting times for Asia, especially India, and that would have a lot of impact on what happens here, because the mother of all deals is supposed to be signed in the coming days. Bombay Chamber will keep abreast of all happenings at Davos, and we'll do a session soon as to, outcomes on these. Like this, we do a lot of other events. First of all, let me invite our keynote address and chief guest, Shri Rajeshwar Rao, former Deputy Governor RBI, and our President Rajiv Anand, who's already here. And welcome to all of you. I would just like to show a small film on what the chamber does, a very short film as to what activities the chamber does in a year. So can we have the film, please?
Established in 1836, Bombay Chamber is a legacy institution created by 7 British pioneers and 3 Parsis. Starting with John Skinner, the founder and first chairman of the chamber, and Narayan Dandekar, our first Indian president, the chamber has been shaped by exemplary leadership from esteemed multinational organizations. The Bombay Chamber has spearheaded Mumbai's transformation, pioneering milestones like India's first railway line, 1853, the India Postage Act, 1854, trade standardization, arbitration systems, and has initiated cultural events like the Kala Goda Festival. Over the years, the Chamber has organized conclaves, webinars, seminars on various trending topics. Our flagship Shipping Conclave is a highly anticipated industry event that brings together key stakeholders, including representatives from the ministry. The Chamber's DEI Awards has become an industry benchmark for excellence in diversity and inclusion. Our signature events, including AgriCorp, bring together agriculture stakeholders, while others focus on mutual funds, insurance, banking, sustainability, CSR, governance, and HR. Through the Young Bombay Forum's Thought Leadership Series, industry luminaries share their journeys, inspiring the next generation of business leaders. The Chamber's Foundation Day and AGM feature distinguished speakers. Through its events, the Chamber has helped handhold its vast MSME membership base in their corporate journeys. The Chamber also makes various representations to the government, including pre- and post-budget memorandums. The Chamber hosts trade delegations from various countries and meets with consul generals from different consulates to discuss collaborations. The Chamber also works on international projects with multilateral agencies. To prepare and groom future leadership, the Chamber conducts mentoring and training programs and also offers platforms for venture capitalists, angel investors and startups to meet and connect. Industrial site visits are another avenue for showcasing industry best practices in sustainability and CSR. The Chamber's centrally located office premises also offers a high-tech, well-equipped conference along with office cubicles and workstation facilities available on lease. The Chamber's publications, including the annual Economic Outlook and Sustainability Surveys, the bi-monthly Bombay Chamber Connect, and its innovative themed desk calendar, are eagerly awaited each year. The Chamber also offers services like Certificate of Origin, Labour Advisory Services, Arbitration and Mediation and Visa Recommendation Letters for members. As we move towards a Viksit Bharat by 2047, the Chamber will continue to be a beacon of light for the industry. We thank our esteemed members who have supported us in our 189-year-old journey, and we look forward to collaborating to build a developed India.
So this in short is what we do. We do roughly 120 odd events, different type of iteration for the industry every year. This is just what we did till November end. And in December, we celebrated our 190th Foundation Day. So we are always at the forefront of looking at any change which happens in the industry. And any regulation, any advocacy which is required, we are always the first ones to initiate that. So with that, I would only request that if you're not a member of Bombay Chamber, please become a member at the earliest, because there are even in this quarter we are doing some very, very major events. In the morning we finished an MSME conclave where we had some 4 council generals speaking about how business can be done in their countries. We also had a session on IPOs as to how MSMEs can benefit and how by getting into IPOs and how it could be driven from there. And in the evening, we have a session on the data protection bill, which is just come in after this. Then we have a big shipbuilding conclave happening in February, and then in March, we are doing 2-3 others, including a huge HR conclave. So please become a member if you're not a member already. And with that, thank you all once again for being here. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you, Mr. Khosla, for such a warm welcome. Now I am pleased to invite Mr. Rajiv Anand, President Bombay Chamber and MD and CEO IndusInd Bank, to please deliver the keynote address and share his perspective on the key trends, challenges and opportunities shaping India's banking ecosystem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. Former DG, Mr. Rajesh Rao, distinguished members of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce, colleagues from the financial services ecosystem, leaders from Indian industry, regulators, entrepreneurs, and friends, good afternoon. It is a privilege for me to be here with you here in Mumbai, a city that never merely reflects India's economic story, but has time and again actively shaped it, challenged it, and expanded possibilities. This is a place where ambition has always found expression, where enterprise has never waited for permission, and where the future has been built not through grand declarations, but through daily acts of courage, conviction, and perseverance. Having spent several decades in banking, I have come to realize that ours is an industry that is often misunderstood. From the outside, it can appear cautious, rule-bound, and even resistant to change. But from within, we know that banking has always been a profession of constant adaptation, adapting to new technologies, new regulatory frameworks, new social expectations, and new definitions of what it means to serve. What has changed today is not simply the direction of that evolution, but its speed, scale, and consequences of failing to keep pace. We are no longer living in a world where small adjustments are sufficient, where incremental improvements can keep us relevant, or where experiences alone guarantee wisdom. We are living through a period of structural redefinition in which old assumptions about how value is created, how trust is earned, and how institutions remain relevant are being rewritten in real time. And that makes this conversation not just timely, but necessary. Because the question before us is no longer whether banking in India will change. That is inevitable. The real question is whether we will shape that change consciously with clarity and courage, or whether we will allow ourselves to be reshaped by it, one disruption at a time. For much of our professional lives, we have thought of banks primarily as institutions, defined by their balance sheets, their capital adequacy, their branch networks, and regulatory classifications. These dimensions will always matter, but they will no longer be sufficient to define relevance in a world that is being reorganized by technology, data, and shifting expectations. Increasingly, banks are becoming part of India's core national infrastructure. Just as physical infrastructure enables mobility, productivity, and growth, modern financial infrastructure enables participation and trust. Platforms such as Aadhaar, UPI, Account Aggregator Framework, and the JAM Trinity have not merely digitized financial services, they have fundamentally changed the way citizens interact with the economy, with each other, lowering friction, enabling expanding access, and embedding finance into everyday life. India today operates one of the most ambitious public infrastructures in the world. What took decades to build elsewhere, we have created in a remarkably short span of time, not by accident, but intentional policy design, institutional collaboration, and technology courage. Yet, technology alone does not transform societies. It merely enables the transformation. If we continue to see ourselves primarily as distributors of products rather than stewards of economic participation, we will miss the larger role that this moment in history is offering us. We are witnessing the formalization of millions of enterprises, the digitization of everyday financial behavior, the rise of first-generation entrepreneurs, and the emergence of young mobile-first population that is both aspirational and globally aware, yet deeply rooted in local realities. At the same time, our credit penetration remains modest. Our MSMEs remain underserved, and a large proportion of our households remain underprotected against risk, volatility, and uncertainty. We need to rethink how we allocate capital, how we assess risk, how we design journeys, and how we define value. The next phase of Indian banking will not be won by those who merely replicate old models on new platforms, but by those who have the courage to reimagine what banking should mean in society that is young, unevenly developed, culturally diverse, and filled with aspiration. For decades, our organizations have been structured around products: savings accounts, deposits, home loans, business loans, insurance, investments, and cards, and so on and so forth. These categories may make sense to us, but they rarely reflect how people actually experience their lives. People do not think in terms of financial products. They think in terms of transitions: starting a business, growing it, educating children, caring for aging parents, buying homes, navigating uncertainty, and preparing for later years with dignity and independence. If we continue to organize ourselves around what we manufacture rather than what people are trying to achieve, we will find ourselves increasingly efficient but increasingly irrelevant. The future will belong to banks that understand this context, not just in terms of compliance, but also in terms of clarity, and that view customers not as transactions but as long-term partners in economic participation. Every generation of bankers has witnessed technology changes, from core banking to ATMs, from internet banking to mobile. But artificial intelligence is not simply just another efficiency tool. It represents a fundamental redefinition of how decisions can be made, how patterns can be detected, how risks can be assessed, and how systems can learn. It will reshape underwriting, compliance, customer service, fraud detection, portfolio management, and even leadership decision making. Yet, the central challenge will not be technology, it will be human. Because while machines can optimize, they cannot be accountable. They can predict, but they cannot care. They can recommend, but they cannot take responsibility. That responsibility will always remain with us, because ultimately, we are in the business of trust. As banking becomes more embedded in everyday life, more automated, more invisible, more real-time, trust will become the most visible differentiator. Who will safeguard my data? Who will explain risks honestly and transparently? Who will stand by me when systems fail? These are not operational questions. These are moral ones. And in a country as diverse, unequal, and complex as India, trust cannot be engineered. It must be earned slowly and consistently. If there is one segment that will define the next chapter of Indian banking, not in terms of balance sheet size, but in terms of national impact, it's the MSME sector. These businesses are not merely economic units. They're expressions of aspiration. They are family stories, generational transitions, and quiet acts of courage, often carried out with limited safety nets and minimal institutional support. They're spread across small towns, semi-urban India, and emerging industrial clusters, and they employ millions of Indians whose future depends on their resilience. Yet, for all their importance, MSMEs remain the most underserved segments in our financial system. For too long, we have tried to fit them into models that were never designed for them. Models built around formal documentation, static balance sheets, and collateral-heavy frameworks. But the future of MSME banking will not be built on what these enterprises own. It will be built on what they generate, how they transact, and how they participate in the digital economy. With GST trails, digital payments, e-commerce linkages, and platform integrations, we now have the ability to better understand small businesses in ways that were impossible even a decade ago. The question is not whether this data exists. The question is whether we have the imagination and courage to use it responsibly and inclusively. India is fortunate to have a regulatory ecosystem that is often demanding, but is consistently prioritizing stability, continuity, and systemic trust. In a world where financial crises have wiped out decades of wealth in a matter of months, this sustainability is not something that we can take lightly. It is an asset. And the most successful institutions will be those that treat compliance not as a tick box exercise, but as a design principle, something that is embedded into how products are created, how systems are built, and how decisions are made. But ultimately, we're in the business of trust. So let me close with this thought. Every generation of bankers is given a choice. Some choose to preserve what they have inherited. Some choose to optimize what already exists. Some choose to transform what they have been given. Transformation is the hardest part. It demands patience in a world addicted to speed, courage in a culture that rewards safety, and humility in an era that celebrates certainty. But it is also the most meaningful, because in the end, banking is not about margins, market share, and quarterly results. It is about belief. Belief that a young entrepreneur in a small town deserves the same opportunity as a multinational corporation in a metro. Belief that families should be able to plan the future without fear. Belief that capital, when guided by wisdom and conscience, can lift societies and not just returns. India today stands at that rare moment of history, a moment when choices we make will not merely shape our institutions, but the lived realities of millions of people who will never know our names, but will live with the consequences of our decisions. The future of Indian banking is not something we will inherit. It is something we must build. And if we can build it with courage, with restraint and imagination, and with unwavering commitment to trust, then decades from now, people will not ask how large we were. They will ask whether we mattered. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for sharing such valuable perspectives with us.